Let's talk now about Priti Patel and her battle to remove the Albanians from this country coming here illegally. Joining me now, Jonathan Gibson, who is a political commentator. Good evening to you, Jonathan.
Good evening. Lovely to join you.
Very, very nice to see you again. We've talked about this before. Priti Patel, obviously on political manoeuvres, I think it's fairly clear to see. We know that Priti Patel now has struck this deal to try and send back the Albanians. 40% of those illegal migrants are Albanian. What do you make of the programme?
I think it's really, really interesting. I think, again, she's playing politics here, and I know my own personal views on that and her programming towards immigration might not be particularly popular, in that I quite strongly disagree with the policies that she's been putting forward regarding this, because I think you mentioned it, and what was really interesting is you mentioned just now the drug trade, and I think in some ways there are some links actually between what's happening here with the migrants and what's happening in the drug trade, which is that if you try to crack down really, really hard on something, it doesn't necessarily always achieve the aim. It can actually be counterproductive. And we've seen that the UK does have quite a tough policy on immigration. There's obviously been the Rwanda scheme, which has been put in place, but it's not working. There's still lots and lots of people that want to come to this country. And it could actually lead to more violent forms of people smuggling and trafficking, and because people might want to come in, and if you make it really, really difficult and send people back, it's not necessarily a disincentive. Even since the Rwanda plan was announced, 13,000 people have wanted to come into the country still. So clearly the plan's not working. And then on the immigration front itself, my personal opinion is I don't think it should be as difficult as it is currently to become a legal migrant, because I think that can improve the country's current state of cost of living crisis, and I think it's positive from an economic perspective.
So just let me pick you up on that. So the first point about Rwanda is there's a judicial review, so we're on pause basically at the moment until they can be bothered to do that. But the second point you said, just clarify that for me about migrants.
Yeah, so I think it would be economically beneficial at this current point to actually increase legal migration into this country, because the problem they're facing at the moment is a supply side policy. It's not the fact we're actually at a very high employment record. It's something like 75-80%, and the problem is not that we have really, really high employment. And actually, I don't think immigrants will necessarily be competing for jobs or taking housing, because that, again, we can solve the housing crisis through deregulating housing, and actually it can be complementary, because English people, we have language skills which immigrants don't have. Research has constantly shown that where we have more migration, actually people are better off, people are richer, and migrants have a net contribution through taxation as opposed to the average Brit who has a net drain. So I think personally it's economically beneficial to increase migration.
So, well, I don't disagree, actually. You know, I fought very hard for Brexit. The whole point, if I remember correctly, was taking back control of our laws, our borders and our money. Now, the point about that is taking back control of our borders means we allow people in who we want to work in this country. Now, at the moment, we're just allowing anyone to come in if you've got a dinghy.
I think again, it needs to be properly reviewed. There needs to be proper ensuring that we can check people, because I don't support the idea that criminals, for example, could come into our country, people with a criminal record. What I do support, however, is people that want to work and want to contribute to our economy and want to give back to this country and give a sort of a net gain to this country. I support that. I think people should, it helps us, it benefits us. This isn't even like a particularly humanitarian argument. This isn't saying, oh, these poor people, whatever.
Indeed.
At the end of the day, this benefits the Brits.
No, fine. Okay, I don't disagree with that. But now, in terms of Priti Patel, she's now cooked up this plan so that we're now sending Albanians back within hours, allegedly, although I'll wait to see that. Albanian police officers will come here working alongside UK immigration officials. And so, obviously, Priti Patel, under pressure to deliver, do you think they will actually make this work?
I'm quite cynical again, like you. I'll have to wait to see if that does happen. And I just think she's playing political football here. I think she's appealing to sort of the anti-immigrant sentiment in terms of culturally. I don't think she's actually doing it because she thinks it will be better for Britain necessarily. Or maybe she does believe that, but I don't agree with her if that is her personal belief. And I think if we can get, for example, Albanians to come here and get a job and work legally and lawfully, as I'm sure there are some which are doing that, don't get me wrong, out of anyone that comes in, there's going to be groups from everywhere where there's a few people.
Jonathan, they can apply for a work visa. They can come here on tourist visas too.
They can, but it's incredibly difficult at the moment, and there's so much red tape. I mean, that's one of Patel's sort of trademarks, is making it almost as difficult as possible to apply to come to the country. And I know, because I know people that sort of want to come to the country, and particularly people with, I don't know, poor language skills or not super highly educated, which are often people that we actually need. I mean, there aren't enough, say, lorry drivers and people doing sort of less highly skilled work, and we need that, but people who are coming from those backgrounds aren't necessarily able to jump through all the hoops in order to make that happen at the moment.
Yeah, so you think Priti Patel is on manoeuvres? She's obviously trying to stay Home Secretary, isn't she?
I agree, yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, that was short and sweet. Just in terms of where we are, this Rishi Sunak, I mean, this has really got people, TalkTV viewers, very angry. The fact is, Rishi Sunak is essentially, I think, said something really quite extraordinary in terms of the COVID response and these minutes and things not being presented as accurately as they should have done. Your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think it is unbelievable. We've literally had 80% of people already voted. And suddenly, it's almost all out of nowhere almost, he seems to have chucked in a massive policy or a massive view on a massive policy that has been affecting people's lives for the last 2 years. I mean, this is huge. This is not like a small statement on some small, tiny issue. This is something quite significant. And being Chancellor for the last year under the Tory government, why has he not said anything earlier? Again, is the immediate jerk reaction for a lot of people. And also the idea is that he keeps saying that, I don't know, SAGE is having too much power. At the end of the day, it's not SAGE that implement the rules themselves. They can give evidence, they can say what they want, but they can't actually do it. They were not elected to our government. And so, as you said, I agree with you in that it is an art and a science. You have to understand the statistics, but then you also have to take everything else into account. And that's your role as a politician. That's why you're elected as a politician rather than as a research scientist or as a data collector.
So tell me, what is Rishi Sunak up to? I do not understand. If you've got this sort of bombs in your hand, why didn't he lob it in at the beginning?
So it does feel, either at the moment, it does feel a little bit politically expedient for me. And that's also been marked by his recent policies the last few weeks. He realises that the prospects of him becoming Prime Minister are not high. And he realises that he can't sit in Liz Truss's cabinet as well, because he said that, and he clearly differs from her views incredibly. So I think it's something in order to try and shore up the last few votes out of those that he can. I don't think it's necessarily something he's particularly passionate about, otherwise he would have made it earlier. He could have even resigned 2 years ago if he'd have really cared that much. And whether or not, I don't know, you agree with his policies, you don't agree with his policies. Yeah. And me, as someone who obviously went through the education system at the time, I was in secondary school during COVID, like obviously I have perspectives and everyone has perspectives, but leaving all that aside, it's just the fact that it's coming now at this really weird time.
I agree, Jonathan. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, Jonathan Gibson, political commentator.